Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of ClueCon Weekly. Joining us this week is none other than the SignalWire CEO, Anthony Minessale, founder of the FreeSWITCH project. And I have many questions for Tony and many new things coming up. So thank you for joining us, Tony, first of all.
No problem. Great to be here.
I hope you don't mind if I don't ask you to do an introduction of yourself. We've done this a few times and people know you. But I'd like you to, SignalWire has been through a few phases recently. We've been working on new products, new concept, more even than products. But first of all, I'd like to ask you, where does this start? Like, how did the past of FreeSWITCH shape the future of the company?
It started sometime back in, I think I put it at 2008. Just a couple of years into the existence of FreeSWITCH. So we were working pretty hard on FreeSWITCH back then. It was new. It still had a lot of rough edges, and we were trying to polish it and using it in high call volume scenarios, finding lots of different little race conditions and bugs as a brand new software at the time. And it was like just starting to get hardened from being just insane amounts of traffic put through it, right? We had like all kinds of telcos using it. The earliest use case for FreeSWITCH was trunking, right? So they would pump entire circuits of DS3 over through the internet from one location to the next. And that kind of all that crazy call volume, sometimes canceled, sometimes complete, sometimes hung up, and all the stuff going on at once kind of helped us scale to, crank out as much as traffic as we could into a single computer. So when we were at that point, it started to become clear, like the first goal in FreeSWITCH was, can we really take advantage of multi-core computers? Because in the past, most people only had 1 or 2 cores on their computer, but you started seeing 4 and 8 coming out. And the idea was since they can't make the processor any faster at the time, there's a really long time when we were kind of stuck at the 2 gigahertz line. It kind of started us back down the road of multi-core, which has been kind of a pattern. Like you get to as much as you can get, then you start trying to scale as many cores as you can. So in this many core environment, especially in Linux and whatnot, we're trying to figure out how much of a single computer can we dominate. We want to use up every resource on the computer so we can scale. So that was one of the reasons that in our early days we were able to do a 10-to-1 replacement on other stuff, because we had put a lot of effort into this scaling multi-core boxes. Because some of the other options you might have on a multi-core box wouldn't, it would only use some of the cores or wouldn't scale evenly and whatnot. So put a lot of attention to that. And the idea was that we're stuck here on this, no matter how many cores they put in one box, it's still kind of all your eggs in one basket. And a real way to do it is to try and scale horizontally and have more systems that work together, because you don't want to, even if you have a 2000 core machine, if it crashes, all the stuff dies with it, so you kind of have to plan for something going wrong. You can't always have everything perfect. So getting one computer to be as efficient as possible was kind of the first goal. And the next goal was sort of how could I do that with an army of servers? So that's been kind of on and off, in the back of my head since then. Also, kind of that was one part of it, and the other part was how do we kind of continue the limitations that are caused by kind of trying to be everything for everyone that FreeSWITCH kind of is all about. There's a lot of heavy influence in our founding FreeSWITCH team from what was popular at the time, and one of those things is Perl, for instance, the Perl programming language. It's kind of like Latin now because no one remembers it anymore, but we were you could make anything out of it, right? And it had this motto of lots of ways to do things and sort of influenced us. There's that in Unix itself, which is what influenced Perl, so it's kind of this continuation, FreeSWITCH kind of continues Unix up into the application layer, with some of its concepts, things fly inside of each other, they can make file formats that are secretly endpoints and vice versa, and plug things into each other and kind of build really cool stuff by daisy chaining the resources together. And when we're in that mode, it was kind of like we would try and do things so that you could solve your problem any way you wanted, but that added a lot of complexity. And it was also like, we didn't know what you were going to have and what you didn't have, because one of our goals was to run everywhere. So say you ran on a Raspberry Pi and it actually works. Like Raspberry Pi has hardly any resources available, so it'll use completely different code paths and stuff to deal with like low performant machines. And then it would have like its own database, because you don't know if you're going to have a database or not. So we would like use SQLite by default, but we'd have a way to upgrade to OBDC or whatever, and then you can connect to MySQL and Postgres if you wanted, and like all the different choices of how you plugged in remote stuff. We'd accept different languages and webhooks and all these different things. So one of the side effects of that is like making it harder to understand, and also like being everything to everyone kind of limits. There's like a hard line of like what else you can do, because you have to make some assumptions to do anything beyond just that line. Like if you make assumptions or remove some of the options, then you can do some like higher level things. Like the higher up the stack you get, the more you have to kind of make some of the default choices for people, or they would literally have like 1 million questions to answer for every different thing they want to do. So you put those things together. I want to scale to multiple machines. Want to be able to give people an environment where they can make less choices and get a lot of the same stuff. That was kind of like the catalyst for what we're doing here. The idea was like, okay, so imagine there's FreeSWITCH. If I wanted to set it up in a cluster, how would I do that? The limitations of doing everything open source so that everyone can do everything they want in every different operating system makes it too hard to figure out that problem. So the other idea was, what if we kind of simplify things by putting it inside of a infrastructure that can kind of auto scale. You can wrap around and put nodes anywhere you want on any network and any kind of data center. And we can kind of just abstract some of the things that are pretty complicated about setting something like that up and just put work on the outside part. So we wanted to say, like, I want to build a calling infrastructure. And then instead of having to start like basically from barren earth, like you kind of can get a head start and have something that already gives you the paradigm that you're looking for, which is like, I just want to have a client server model that just I deploy my client and it has a server that's just kind of there and gets as big as I need it to and automatically scales and lets me do some of the more powerful stuff, like setting up my own call flows, creating extensions, all those kind of things that most people set out to do. And on a normal, say if you're trying to start your own UCaaS kind of product, like it's going to take you 5 years before you make the first phone call on it, because you're going to be spending so much time doing like the architecture on even setting the servers up, and like you're going to hit all these same roadblocks. What do I do when I make one server all the way full? I need 2 servers. I have to round robin the calls. How do I like normalize the logs between everything? How do I deal with when something's not working and working around problems? And like, how do I just maintain all the stuff in the first place? So the idea was like, we would take some of the older stuff, make it so on the outside you're just like using simple interfaces, normal APIs, REST APIs, JSON posts, getting JSON in, JSON out, or JSON RPC, so that you can kind of in a browser or from a remote shell, either way, like you can make communication lines up to the core that you're not stuck on any one server. There's no downtime, because even if something goes wrong, there's another server right behind it, and kind of solve all those problems. That way you can, deploy some kind of product that you want to build in literally a couple of weeks instead of something that would have taken years before, right? So, and even some like quick wins that could be accomplished inside of 1 or 2 days. Where you want to prototype something to make sure that you like it first. And then from there, you can dig deeper and expand and do a lot more stuff, where all the effort that you're putting in as a user is on your side of everyone's trying to make something, right? Like we make all these different analogies. Like if you want to be an artist and you're really good at painting, do you really want to be making your own paint too? Like in order to paint this picture, you're going to have to learn the art of like mixing chemicals together and creating the right color of paint and make your own canvas by weaving it first. And then by the time it's time to actually paint the picture, you're exhausted from doing it, when you could just kind of start with a canvas and paint, and then everything you're doing is like your vision and not just like these repeating the same thing over and over again, forgetting the back end of it all.
Yeah, I feel like the idea of getting to market quickly is very relevant in that as someone who's built applications from FreeSWITCH for a living for a long time, the boilerplate that you save by using SignalWire is really it's really impressive. And I wish I had SignalWire back in the day for a few projects for sure. I'll tell you, I feel like so good question. What are the main industries that SignalWire has been serving, and which are being powered by our technology?
Well, what we've discovered is that there's sort of this shift going on. So that the main industries tend to be companies that are kind of mature in the sense that they probably make uh, some kind of product that's modern and built on some form of communication. So what you'll see is that like in the old days, you would set up your company. A lot of it was half physical. Sometimes you got like a website or something, and then you would maybe get like an office and you'd put phone lines in, and then like that was like a separate thing, and then you'd work on your website, and then maybe you would tell people to call you from your website and stuff. So what you're starting to see now is like the company starts online first. They don't even have to get an office if you don't need one. So you could like take a credit card, start a company, do everything on the internet, start with the website only. And when you want to do the communication stuff, you start thinking like, I wish that I had my own version of the communication paradigm that I'm imagining. Instead of like having to go get telephones and tell you to call in the phone, you can actually start weaving the stuff like into your website and mobile app you might already have. So you want your phone calls to kind of come in. So what we've been getting are people that are kind of stuck between, we really kind of identified two sides of the coin. Like on one side, there's build everything yourself all the way from ground up, including understanding all the DevOps and all the different kinds of server components and every one of the different things that it takes to keep an infrastructure there. In this long-winded road, kind of, there's only a certain set of people that can actually pull that off. And there's a lot of people that think they can pull it off, but then they learn after 2, 3, 4 years that it's actually harder than it looks. And then the other side, they're like maybe customers of call it like a large app provider who sort of tries to take the concepts that make sense into some version of an app, something that you would subscribe to and pay money and kind of just use their platform as an end user. So we found our customers are kind of in the middle of that. So they don't want to just have what you see is what you get sort of app environment. And they don't also want to build everything all the way from the ground up. So in the middle, they kind of have this ability to connect our platform amongst what they're doing so that they can quickly like integrate, say like there's a lot of people trying to build AI stuff now. There's a lot of people trying to make call routing and sending messages and responding with confirming two-factor authentication, all these use cases that you might want to build something. You don't want to build all the way from barren earth, and you also don't want to buy your way out of the problem because it's either like too expensive and doesn't do what you want, or costly in time because you don't have like the resources to kind of construct your own entire network. So that's kind of like the playground.
Again, starting from scratch is really not. I feel like to finish the train of thought, as a developer, I feel like, and I've been a consultant for a long time, if I have to spend half of my customers' money and time on building things from scratch, I'm only giving them half the value, as opposed that I could be spending the same hours on getting the customer's business proposal to completion, and that would be much better value for the same amount of work. So there's a lot going for that. It's just makes sense. Well, at SignalWire, we were working on a vision that sort of unifies. Well, unified is somewhere in there that we've been working on for a long time. And I think I really like the definition of programmable unified communications. What do you think that means, and what does it mean for the market?
Yes, so it sort of defines we have this habit in our industry of like analysts will make up terms, and you have your CPaaS and and UCaaS and CCaaS, and like you got to learn all these acronyms. So a lot of those things, like what they've turned out to be, are kind of versions of, CPaaS might sound, everyone wants to say they're a CPaaS because it sounds cool for a while. And reality with that kind of has distilled itself down to is I can send text messages from a REST API, SMS to REST API gateway, and maybe like a phone number to basic IVRs, right? Like, so that was kind of what it's kind of distilled down to. And then you have like UCaaS, which, sounds like some kind of cool integrated service or whatever, but really it just means hosted mobile app. It just means mobile app that I can make PSTN phone calls through, right? So like, then we have CCaaS, which is just a slight different UCaaS only for contact centers, right? So like you have these, like 2 out of the 3 aren't really that programmable at all. They're just kind of applications that kind of use the apps term in order to fit in. And what we noticed from looking at all these things are that we wanted to make sure that things remained programmable. It's kind of what we did at our core, right? We made things programmable from day one. Like all of FreeSWITCH was built on this premise that as many places as we can, we put events and webhooks and all these different things because people are going to have all these different ideas and what they want to do. And we have all these like different verbs and dial plan stuff. And we wanted to keep that. So the term unified communication has been going around forever. Like before, I remember the early days when we were just building FreeSWITCH. Back then, unified communications was like focused on a browser that also let you check your email, right? That was what they used for it, because that was the thing that everyone was doing at the time. Like, oh my God, I can go on the internet and I have email and I can browse. Like, wouldn't it be cool if like that was one app? So everyone always tries to do that. And this unified communication term has kind of evolved ever since, and we turned into this idea of a WhatsApp kind of model at this point, but not programmable, right? So what we put together was that by taking the concept of programmable unified communications, we're not trying to say that it's an app, and we're not trying to say that it's just CPaaS or whatever. You take all those things and mix them together, and what you get are an environment where you can set up a client server model as needed at a low level, so that those client and servers are programmable. So every time you can say like put a phone line on your website, and somebody clicks it, that phone line, it feels and works just like a phone line, but it's a programmable item that you've deployed. Like you create it over in SignalWire, you attach it to your website, someone clicks it, it builds a media stream into our network, and then routes the call just like any telecom engine, like what FreeSWITCH can do, but very simplified, so that you can just deploy it. So say you wanted to put a video room, and meet people on it, and say like talk to sales or whatever, you click it, you join a room, and then it pages them, and then they can pop in the room and talk to you. You could literally have your phone on your desk ring when someone clicks that button on your website. You could write a program that answers the phone. We've got these really cool AI stuff maybe we could talk about, where it can kind of be like the first line of defense when someone answers your calls, and those calls no longer only have to come in over phone numbers and whatnot. So like, it's actually trying to use the term unified communications for what it is, like taking the medium of messaging, video, audio, all these different things, and making them so that you can hack away at it and build whatever you want. And then some of those more complicated paradigms, like say like a client server sort of mobile app calling into a network and routing calls to those things, it kind of works the same way. So say you have you write a web app with our SDK, which is like most of the phone call part is all done for you. You just got to decide what colors to use and where to put the buttons. You can make an app and everybody can use it. And it's like adding like your own soft phone. You can write in like minutes. You can use reference ones that we already provide, or you can use classic phones still if you really like those. So you've got some went to a bunch of trade shows and you still have all those different SIP phones and whatever from the old days. You can wire those in too. You can route calls to and from those phones into things that are on websites or on mobile apps. You can build it and mix together whatever you want to do. That allows you to kind of prototype either solutions for, like, say you want your communications paradigm for your company to all come into the same logic. So whether someone calls your phone number, clicks a button on your website, downloads your mobile app and presses the I need help button, like all leads to the same rules, goes through call flows that you can define and set up. So you have all these different options. And you're programming it yourself. And programming doesn't always have to mean writing 5 million lines of code that makes you go blind reading it. Programming also is just drag and drop some things and write some hooks here and there and integrate it into your backend. So that's kind of the premise, is that programmable unified communications is the way that you can solve problems through your creativity, rather than just being kind of stuck with an app decided for you how it's supposed to work.
Where do you think FreeSWITCH fits into this new picture? Aside from SignalWire using FreeSWITCH extensively, sponsoring the project, and there's a lot going on there, but you think FreeSWITCH can be used together with Programmable Unified Communications?
I do. It's actually, there's a lot we have in store for that. So FreeSWITCH, being this Swiss Army knife that it is, can be deployed and run anywhere you want that has the internet and a computer, right? So SignalWire, trying to be highly available and present on the internet, you can actually you can trunk like a FreeSWITCH machine into the SignalWire network. And with this new Programmable Unified Communication Solutions, which we call Call Fabric, you will be able to, for instance, route calls in and out of SignalWire between. You can go into one. You could have a FreeSWITCH A and B and put SignalWire in the middle to kind of be like the call router for it. So if you had a bunch of, like, say you had a deployment where there's like a FreeSWITCH on site A and it has like a bunch of local phones registered to it or something, and then on site B was similar and those people wanted to call each other, you could use the stuff together so that you put all the, say, public inbound routing and stuff, leave it at SignalWire, have it terminate into these FreeSWITCHs, and you can actually like reference the different objects that you've created in SignalWire from FreeSWITCH, so you can send calls to and from those objects as well. So it actually can gives you the path. Like, we have a bunch of plans for like your FreeSWITCH instance will kind of be married into your SignalWire setup, so that it will it'll learn the configs and stuff from our cloud and kind of add more depth to the FreeSWITCH that you have. So it kind of allows you to build this telecom network that's completely internet first, which is like the ultimate goal, is we want to have communications live on the internet, similar to cord cutting, right? Like, you want to get rid of having like a cable box, right? Because now you get YouTube TV and it's just an app. You can run it anywhere because it rides on the internet. Wherever the internet goes, it goes with it. We're trying to do the same thing on telecom, so that everything you do starts from the internet and stays there as much as possible, but we still can give you an off-ramp back to the kind of old way of doing things for when you have to.
I think my last question is actually loaded. I know what's going on. I've been building a few samples, and there's some exciting stuff coming in the next few weeks, I think, starting with the Enterprise Connect, and then especially ClueCon, which is our favorite conference. It's going to be in August in Chicago. And if I'm not mistaken, the early bird tickets are available until February 29th. So go get your tickets. And all of this and much more will be featured there. And I think there will be a very a few interesting presentations about using FreeSWITCH and Programmable Unified Communications together, because I've been building a few very exciting prototypes. So personally looking forward to showing that to people in August. Well, Anthony, I mean, the POC concept is going to be very interesting in the next months. So when do you think we could expect to have the first releases out? Should people come Sail Enterprise Connect, for example?
Yeah, we're going to Enterprise Connect this year, and we will have a whole slew of new things to talk about by that time. We have just putting finishing touches on it. We've already have a few of those things even out now. Our AI agent product allows you to create digital employees with barely any effort compared to what you might imagine. It's just as easy as throwing together a JSON document that describes all the behaviors, and you can wire any kind of activity. There's a repo that we posted that has all the different examples in it that we could add to the comments or something here. And there's also, ClueCon's coming up, and we're taking speaker submissions still. Just kind of got the ball rolling on that. And we intend to have like a second stage of even more stuff added onto that. So we're trying to do a lot of development and debuting of things in the next few months.
Nice. Yeah, that's going to be very, very interesting. Well, I'll be at Enterprise Connect too, actually, and then of course at ClueCon. So looking forward to this. And let me tack in a little PSA to the end. If anybody, is there anything that people would like to see specifically at ClueCon when it comes to presentations, training, and in general classes of sorts? Let us know. Let me know. We're prepping the new materials. There's some exciting stuff going already, but we have a few hours. We have set aside to do specific classes about something. So it's super interesting to me. And anybody who has requirements or ideas, drop me an email. It's just luke@signalwire.com. Super happy to do that. And of course, the whole team is here.
20 years of ClueCon. It'll be the anniversary edition. So if you've ever come to ClueCon before, you have to come to the 20th. And if you've never come, it's a good time to start, because it's going to be like a nostalgic one. We'll have all kinds of cool stuff there.
Good. Yeah, that's right. This is 20th edition. Well, again, Anthony, thank you for joining us today. Looking forward to seeing you at Enterprise Connect, and especially at ClueCon, and looking forward to seeing what POC brings to the market.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
And for the rest of the people, I'll see you next week. Goodbye.